18. Dragon Guard. The wind is fair as the day. Perchance it lends the notion that the old ship was quite new to Tucunum's eye. Tucunum lightly glides up the wooden-spotted plank leading unto the ship, surveying the plethora of ballistae and honor guard catapults, when the stench of fresh paint belabors her nose. There is a row of Urani's crew, mostly Tundran, and 2 grammati, all waiting at the top, with Urani herself in the middle. Kelat stands the tallest to Urani's right. The group surveys her brightly, with much awe and wonder, having seen or heard of her deeds. Tucunum's white flowing organza tunic, velvet boots, and skin do seem to intensify the sun's beams that shine down on her, giving off the impression that she is some magical creature sent from above. Her bone accessories gives off an air of primitiveness, but high-ranking royalty. Chicheyu waits nervously on the sand next to his dragon guard, which consists of Liuf, Maple, Elm, and 2 soldiers newly recruited. The dragon guard objective is to aid in guarding the dragon, Chicheyu, and also Tucunum. The council deems that the members should represent Höfjar adequately by electing elves from each region. Tucunum and Liuf are both from the north. Maple and Elm represent the south. Thus Keen is chosen from the west, and Nigella is from the east. The disparity is not of consequence, to them deeming the depleted numbers in their force more important. Welcome, Lady Tucunum. It is good to see you, my friend. Urani expresses, thrilled after such a long wait for this very moment. I spared nothing, she warmly avows to Tucunum. Kelat, on cue, begins taking a few parcels and luggage Tucunum carries. He hands them to a deckhand that runs off below to store them away. Tucunum studies him before turning back to Urani. It does seem well kept, Tucunum cordially replies, holding out her hand. I am grateful for your willingness. No issue. I am more than glad to be of service. Urani shakes her hand and places an arm on Tucunum's shoulder, seemingly to expect more to the hand. You will find your quarters delightful, I am sure. I have made some adjustments at length, breadth, and depth to the hall to increase Eleanor's capacity to prevent any listing from your dragon and listing, Tucunum interrupts. I strengthen medic sensor or stability, she clarifies, so the ship won't tip over. Ah, I understand, Tucunum declares. I have installed improved stern and rudders, Urani continues excessively. I had thickened the hull construct for strength and robustness, adding rowing banks and oarsmen to boot. You have the honor? Tucunum questions, watching Urani's eyes transform avaricously. Yes, Urani answers low. Straight to business. Ha ha! She laughs lightly. Rest first. I trust you are honorable. Tucunum suppresses all ill thoughts conjured by that statement, not wanting to even think negative on her clever acquaintance. Behind her, in single file, she hears her group, Maple, Elm, Liuf, Keen, all ascending with Nigella nervously in the rear. Call your dragon, Urani tells her. We have accommodations for it as well. I truly was not sure what a dragon needs. I did hope it does not disappoint. I brought extra livestock, not really knowing what they eat, only old legends to interpret. Her face reveals a bit of worry. I am sure it is fine, Jaconim reassures her, turning away now, wanting to be done with this conversation. Jaconim signals for Chicheyu to fly aboard the ship. Obediently, he takes flight and hovers over the hull to land with a thud on the top of the deck, then lumbers over to greet the group. Everyone pauses their greetings to watch the large beast that has been growing so fast he's hardly used to his own wings and legs. Eleanor takes well to his landing, unmoved by his tremendous weight. Chicheyu nods and smiles at them as one would expect from a toddler. Uranie and her crew marvel at his magnificent build and structure. If it wasn't for his unsure demeanor and graceless entrance, he would candidly be frightening. Already he bears double rows of teeth and claws the length of daggers. "How much did you say he weighed?" Kellogg asked Jaconim, seemingly mesmerized by the beast. "Roughly 6,614 pounds, give or take. 1,000 kilograms. She smiles, amused. She looks at Uranie, pleased. "You did quite well." Uranie nods. "Please, in return." Everyone's fixed gaze only lasts a few moments. Instructions commence. The deckhands fetch the elves' large vine-woven box crate from the shore, and all belongings are carried away. Afterwards, small talk proceeds, a tour of the ship, in which Uranie shows off her new designs. On the ship she painted a dull gray, and brags of how she can now sail directly into the wind with taut sails. Jaconim muses. If she knew more about ships, she might be impressed, no doubt, but she isn't. She simply smiles, amusing, when hoping that Uranie is the expert that she claims to be. Most of her elf group does not understand half of what Uranie is attempting to convey. Alas, the 30-minute tour drags out a few hours of explanations and details that none of them will likely utilize. However, revelation strikes Jaconim as Uranie boasts of her success, transporting Guang's glass and amber, the Baltimore salt and slaves, and Tundran's ice and fur back and forth. She finds herself pleasantly taken with Uranie's accomplishments, and even more so with the knowledge that such a network exists. A grand feast in celebration of friendship is planned, their first evening out at sea, on the new improved Eleanor. Jaconim refrains from making any comments other than complimentary. As the celebration advances further into the night, Uranie signals Jaconim from across the hall. She directs her to the lower decks. Jaconim takes the cue. Jaconim follows down the hold. After a series of long twists and stairs, she comes upon Uranie, leaning on a crate filled with iron coins, with designs resembling those she had seen in the pirate Captain Aubrey's ship. This very ship. It is the iron to be transformed as they discussed in previous communications. Uranie takes a handful, saying, "The blacksmith who made them for me thought I was crazy." She laughs loud and boisterously. "He asked if I planned to paint them gold." She laughs again. "Something like that," I told him. She puts a hand on Jaconim's shoulder, who is just smiling amused. "Tell me, friend, what is the plan? I hear you tell we are to sail west, but you wish to sail to Moria, which is east. I can only assume that you are going against orders, or you have changed plans." Draconum puts her hand on Urani's shoulder to return the gesture, smiling slightly. Your first assumption is more accurate, she says, and picks up a single coin to examine it. We are to start west, as I wish not to disappoint. I like the gray. I do intend to go east, as we first discussed. Urani's face lightens. We will go unseen in the fog and difficulty in weather. I have been sailing since I was a lass. Good, Draconum utters, seeing the cushioned chair near the crates of iron coins. We are to get close as we can to the fleet of Nepot Mor, heading towards Höfjar before we sail to Tumultmoria. This strikes Urani. Relax, Draconum insists, attempting to smooth the anxiety the ship's captain may be experiencing. You will not need to do anything. I will sink the ships myself. Sink an entire fleet? Astonished, Urani steps back, folding her arms. Yes, Draconum smiles curtly. Your tour was quite informative. It may take several hours, but I can handle it on my own. You need not worry about anything, save for sailing us safely from which point I designate. Can you handle that? Easily. Urani relaxes her arms. She stands more open. You say you can sail this thing 6 knots? I'm really not sure how fast that is exactly. I will just trust that you can judge our distance versus the speed in proximity to what I'm asking. 6 knots in fair conditions, lady. My ship is contingent upon the weather. Again, I will just trust your judgment as long as you are taking me to my desired destination within a reasonable time. And the others, Urani asked, do they know your plan? Draconum sighs. Not yet. Perhaps we can make it look like it was a mishap, of course. My crew will know. I can try to hush them, but some live to wag their tongues. Well, keep it down as long as possible, until I can sway them at least. From what I've heard from the others I've spoken with, most of Höfjar are backing you. I must be cautious. Spies lurk everywhere in Höfjar when animals can tell on us. All are not understanding which side and that. Oh my! I am glad to be at sea where, if I do find a spy, I can march them off the plank after slathering them with some tar. Urani puts her hand on her chin, considering animals. You are not afraid that the birds will reveal our location? Oh, no, not out at sea. It's all right. Besides, Höfjarians will not come after you. Draconum explains, seeing the worry building in Urani's face. We don't think in violence or malicious intent, which is why I believe we are being set upon. You are correct, the wisest amongst your kind. I am so glad you enjoyed that book. Hello, my name is Deanne Treasure-Kellogg. I just read to you Chapter 18 from Collective Minds, Book 2, from the series of White Wizard of Höfjar. If you have any questions, maybe you didn't read Book 1 and you want to know something a little bit more about Captain Urani, she was introduced in Book 1. So there's more about her. This is the first time she's coming into Book 2, if you've been following along with this book. Anyway, so the books are available, Ingram, Amazon, and Barnes & Noble, ebook or paperback, whatever your preference is. And if you're living in the Lafayette, Louisiana area, just contact me and you can get a personal signed book from me, the author, yourself. Okay, so glad you enjoyed. Remember, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and tune in next week. We will have Chapter 19. All right. Next time.